For those of you concerned out there, no, I am not driving, I am parked. So, is motivation interviewing elitist and judgmental? I don't know, maybe.
All right, so I never thought I'd actually be sitting here today defending motivation interviewing, but the reality is I appreciate any opposition to my ideas because it allows me to express my beliefs and the ideas that I have about behavior change coaching. So first and foremost, behavior change coaching, specifically motivation interviewing, is not a magic bullet. So it is my goal to help physical therapists, clinicians, and students, as well as coaches, get better at coaching behavior change, because I believe as clinicians are becoming more and more of a frontline healthcare provider, I believe that there is a missed opportunity in the clinic to help those people that they see who are seeking change with behavior change. And on top of that, I've also attached or hitched my wagon to motivation interviewing, as I think it's a unique methodology for framing dialogue around change talk. And while I say unique, I know it's not new, but I think it's a pretty good way to go about that change dialogue. So I have actually followed Dr. Ben House for a while now, and I actually respect him and appreciate his insights. He posts some really cool stuff. He has a PhD, and he has a pretty sick tattoo sleeve. So if you haven't checked it out, head over to his Instagram page and see what he's got to say. And so with his most recent post with motivation interviewing, I tend to agree with some of the things he says, but I also don't agree with a lot of what he says. And if you actually head over to his Instagram thread about this topic or this post that he made, you can actually see that he's pretty open-minded, and he was using a pretty nebulous caption to really grab people's attention. And what he said was that ironically, the people who use motivation interviewing end up being elitist and judgmental. And he was specifically talking about coaches. And while I tend to believe that this could be true, I kind of just follow the long upheld idea of don't be an asshole, right? It's a conceivable, just like anything, that MI taken to an extreme can actually lead to, like he says, a religious-like vernacular and a cult-like behavior. So I could see one coach being like, turning up their nose to another coach who is not using motivation interviewing because they might be providing too much advice, and that is elitist and judgmental. And so it's from my understanding that his point is that there are coaches out there that can be elitist and judgmental of other coaches, but practicing MI with a patient or client is quite the opposite, and I believe that Ben actually knows that. Which leads me to my next point. In Ben's post, he says, quote, "I'm sorry to say this to your teddy bear, but it doesn't outperform advice as well as you think," right? So to which my argument is that knowledge without action is still inaction. And I don't know who said that. I've kind of just had that stuck in my mind all the time. So the thing about MI is that giving advice is actually a part of that, and he knows that. So how do we know for sure that advice alone versus a MI-specific clinical method to enhance personal motivation for change has better outcomes or outperforms one another? And we don't know for sure. And if anyone has any literature out there that I'm unaware of, which is very likely, I'd love for you to please share so that we can continue this discussion and have open mind about this topic. Ben continues on to say that MI is relatively convoluted methodology built for subjects who have high ambivalence and low desire to change. And I don't think there's anything convoluted really about MI. So once you understand the principles, or the spirit of MI as they like to say, even if you are sloppily engaged in conversation, it seems like you should always be steering the person back to an active role in seeking their actions towards the change that they want. It's really only as complex as you make it. I do agree with Ben that it can backfire if you don't know how to manage someone's expectations. For example, if someone has a very high level of ambivalence and a low desire for change, then exploring their ambivalence could very well change their level of desire for change within about a 15-minute session or so. Additionally, if they have a very low level of ambivalence and a high desire to change, you might as well just jump on that advice train and help them plan for action. But yeah, it is true that if you continually ask somebody open-ended questions when they're ready for change, they have low ambivalence, they're looking for advice, they could get pretty pissed off. But I really want to know, what is the opportunity cost here for using the principles of MI? I personally don't particularly see it as a start to finish technique necessarily, and neither do Rolnick and Miller. But if you are great at actively listening, reflecting, and communicating in a client-centered narrative, you can still get there. But I want you to think about all those patients and clients who are really difficult or not following through on their home exercise program or not following your advice that you're just willingly giving, right? Think about those patients. In my experience, here's what I have found most useful in trying to get better at motivational interviewing. I have found the very endeavor alone trying to get better at MI has made me recognize when and when not to find time to engage in behavior change coaching. With practice, it has helped me listen for change talk and guide people to hearing their own intrinsic motivations to change. I don't really think these days, when I engage in those conversations, I don't think, now I'm doing MI. I'm sitting down doing MI, and I'm going to start asking the right questions. If you start asking the right questions with accurate empathy and genuine curiosity, you'll realize that the person is already opening up and you're on your way to guiding them to action. So at the end of the day, motivation interviewing is not a technique that you need to follow in order to get somebody to act on the behaviors that they want to change. It's really about understanding the ebb and flow and maintaining the principles of MI throughout the dialogue in order to get that person to understand or enhance their intrinsic motivation for change. If you can take principles from MI with a genuine curiosity, then you are well on your way to helping and enhancing somebody's life through behavior change coaching.